You ready for me to start?
We do have
Can I just say thank you to you all for filling up this room, because flying out here, New York City has not been one of the success story cities for my strip over the years. The newspapers here have never really run me, and so I had visions of flying all the way out here and coming to New York Comic Con for the first time and having about 3 people in the room. So thank you very much for keeping my ego, at a healthy level. I put together this slideshow, and I borrowed my daughter's laptop to run it, so I'm hoping like some weird slide doesn't pop up with Pokemon or something like that. But anyway, my name is Bill Amond, and I do a comic strip called Foxtrot. So if you're in the wrong room, now's the time to leave. Anyway, my strip runs in these things called newspapers. You may or may not be familiar with them. It also, for a while now, is run on the internet. I've got a website at foxtrot.com. I do a strip. I used to do it 7 days a week. I do it once a week now on Sundays, because I'm old and I just don't have the sense of humor I had in my 20s. Anyway, what I thought I'd do is start out by running you through a quickie history of my life. When I was a kid, we moved around a lot, and I started out on the East Coast, and then we moved to the West Coast, and then we moved back to the East Coast, and then back to the West Coast, and so I don't know if that affected the way I draw the strip or anything like that, but people often ask me where my strip is where the Fox family lives, and I have to say, well, it's the sort of made-up mixture of East Coast, West Coast, and now I live in the Midwest, so there's probably some of that in there too. Anyway, when I was young, I always drew cartoons for fun, but I never imagined I would do it for a living. And when I was in high school, my big interests were things like Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and programming computers. And I'm old enough that I was in high school in the late 70s, which was a pretty cool time if you're a geek, because that's when the first Star Wars came out, and Apple came out with their Apple II, and that's my box D&D set from 1977. And to just demonstrate what a nerdy kid I was, I had this box that says Dungeons and Dragons on it perfectly well, but I had to add one of those little tape labels. Anyway, I was sort of a nerdy kid, and I went off to college, and where I studied 2 things primarily. Physics was my major, and then I was in a fraternity and probably drank a lot of beer. I don't tell my kids that. But the other thing I did in college was I got a job as the editorial cartoonist for our school newspaper. And that was where I first started doing cartoons sort of seriously on a deadline, and it was a twice-a-week newspaper, which was a good pace, because I don't think I would have passed any of my classes if I had to draw cartoons more often than that. Anyway, it gave me the confidence when I came out of college to think, well, maybe I'll try a comic strip just to see what would happen. I was a big fan of Bloom County and Doonesbury, and The Far Side had just come out. And it looked like a really fun job. And so I put together a comic strip, and let's see if I can do this. My first comic strip was this thing called Bango Ridge, and it was this guy who goes off to the jungle to study animals, and the animals are all sort of hip and pop culture savvy, and they quickly take control. And that was rejected by all the syndicates. In those days, there were 7 or 8 syndicates. Now there are about 3 or 4. And those are the companies that sell comic strips to newspapers around the country. And so the game is you send off your submission to a syndicate and hope they like it enough to offer you a contract. And then even that's not a guarantee of success. You still have to get into newspapers. But it's the big hurdle that's the necessary first step. Anyway, that was rejected by everybody. But the rejection letters were mildly encouraging, so I tried a second strip, and that was Foxtrot. And this is the first page from my first submission. And I got, as I said, encouraging rejection letters. And one syndicate said, "We actually really like it. Could you send us more?"